Hello, Adrian. You are up next, sir.
Hey, Bart, how are you?
How's it going? Where are you calling from, Adrian?
Sydney, Australia.
Oh, wow. So it is probably sometime in the morning there, right?
Yeah, it's about 7:30 in the morning.
7:30 in the morning. Okay.
Yeah.
So where is this played out of?
The casino in Sydney, so Star in Sydney.
Is that just one casino in Sydney?
Basically, yeah. There's another one, Crown, as well, but they don't really run poker at the moment.
They don't run poker. So I had put out a tweet a couple weeks ago where I was saying that I had, bet $75 into a $100 pot at Boston Harbor Encore, and the guy folded, and I raked in $90 because it's 5% up to $10, and then there were some guys showing me like the rake structure at the Crown in Melbourne, and it's like 10% up to like $100. Is that right? Can that possibly be right?
Oh, wow. I'm not sure. I haven't played there. That sounds really high. I mean, the structure at Star is 10% up to 15 cap.
Up to 15, not 50. 15. Okay.
Yeah, 15.
And what's the smallest game that plays there?
Smallest game is 2-3 with an optional 6.
And the buy-in for that?
500 cap.
500 cap. Okay. And what game are you playing in?
We're playing 2-5-10, so that's a 1K cap.
All right. 2-5-10, mandatory 10, 1K cap.
It's an optional 10, but it's basically always on. I mean, sometimes there's tables that don't put it on, but for the most part, it's always on.
Okay. All right. Start us off here.
So we're 8-handed and effective stack 12-20 here. And under the gun opens to 40, so that's slightly on the larger side for the game, but not outlandish. I mean, average open size is about 30 to 35 as usual.
Okay. So under the gun to 40.
And then it folds around to us in a small blind. So we look down Queen of Clubs, Queen of Hearts.
It folds all the way around to you in the small blind. Is that right? Okay.
That's right, yeah. And then we 3-bet. So normally try and go 4x, but given the slightly large open, I go about 3.5. So I make it 140.
Okay.
And then big blind straddle fold only under the gun call, so it heads up to the flop.
So yeah, I mean it's a little bit on the small side here. I mean I guess you're just over 100 big blinds. So you're just going a touch over 3x from the small blind. Under the gun to 40, you go to 140. Big blind folds, and I assume under the gun defends.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I tend to go a little bit larger from out of position, and I've even said this before. Not that you're probably going to see a whole lot of reflection of set mining go on, but there's some crazy things at 100 BB games online where people go like to 7 or 8x as a 3-bet from out of position at that stack depth so that people can't set mine. It's usually late versus late, but it's just something of note. All right, so the pot's like what? Like 190, something like that? Oh, 290, excuse me. 290. Yeah. Okay.
And just on that pre-flop sizing, is that kind of, 160, 170 type size you would choose?
Yeah, I would usually go 4x here in this particular spot. It is interesting because like the deeper you get, the more like super deep, you want to keep a lot of like thousands of big blinds deep. It's counterintuitive where you kind of want to keep the pot a little bit small from out of position, but at this stack depth, you do want to cut some of the implied odds hands out, but with under the gun being pretty tight configuration as an open, it's a little bit different because of the fact that he's just much tighter in the total configuration, like total number of hands and things like that. But in general, I usually go right around 4x. But you go to 140, I think it's fine. So the pot's 290, okay.
And flop comes out Jack of Spades, 9 of Diamonds, 3 of Diamonds.
All right. So front door diamonds, Jack, 9, 3. And obviously the board is somewhat textured depending on how he constructs, right? His raise defend range, like open defend range here from under the gun. I would assume you would have jacks and 9s would fit in here pretty well. Maybe he's not opening 3s, couple diamonds out there. Okay.
Yeah. And most of the Broadway hands, so he's kind of got flush draws, straight draws.
Right.
So I bet 80, which is obviously on the smaller side. And I can kind of go into why I did that. But yeah, I bet 80.
I think that's probably okay for this type of board, when the board kind of favors your opponent so much, although you might be you might have jacks and nines though as well.
Yeah.
In theory, if you're playing a 3-better or fold type of strategy. But I don't hate a small bet here on this type of board. And
I just thought as well it was probably somewhat easier to defend if he starts trying to, he was an aggressive player, and if he starts trying to put pressure on me from in position, if I start off small and he raises, it kind of gives me options to either call and assess, or I could potentially even just 3-bet the flop.
I mean, you could also go, if you had two sizings, obviously you'd think about like going like 1/3 or like 2/3 in a situation like this. Now, Jack 10-3 is a little bit different. In a given situation, it's a little bit more textured with a little more straight draws and things like that. But I don't think that it can be that bad to go 80 here in a 3-bet pot on Jack 9-3. So you go 80, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And under the gun call.
450 on the flop. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm thinking, any 8, 10, queen, or diamonds, he can probably start to put a bit of pressure on me on the turn. So the turn comes off the 8 of clubs.
Well, I can even see where this is going already here. The thing about making it small on the flop, which you did, right? I mean, you're making it 25% of the pot or no, 30%? Something right around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's between 25 and 30.
Yeah.
The thing about going small is that you have to defend down lighter when the board gets stickier. I've talked about that many, many times, just because he's going to have more hands that have called the flop that are going to want to start bluffing, just because you bet so small on the flop. So I think sometimes people forget. I really think, especially in 3-bet pots, when it comes to hand reading, one of the most, I can't stress it enough, maybe the most important part of the hand when you get somewhat of a wet run out and you're thinking about bluff catching the end is your flop continuation bet sizing and obviously the texture of the flop is really the most important part of a hand when you get to a certain run out where you're like, this kind of sucks. How large did you bet? How many hands will call the flop because of either small or large sizing lends into this. Turns in 8. I mean, obviously you've got 2 queens here, so you pick up a gut shot. With that being said, obviously, queen 10 is open-ended. It's interesting that you don't have the queen of diamonds, because you would think that the only queen 10 that would defend would in this configuration would be queen 10 suited. And you don't have diamonds or spades. You think that queen 10 of diamonds might do a lot of raising on the flop. That's why I'm looking at the suits in your hand. So I find queen 10 pretty unlikely. It kind of rolls to one combo of queen 10 of spades, which might still even be raised off on the flop. But now that you've bet small, you very well might want to check and allow him to bluff now, right? Like this card, you're going to check it a lot. So start letting him bluff with whatever he has.
So we do. We check.
Yep.
And then under the gun bets 275. So it's just under 2/3 pot.
Well, I mean, I would just be looking at some math, because I remember that we started this hand at 100 BB. So if you call the pot's 1,000 and you guys have you've put in 225. So you're going to have like 700 left and the pot's $1,000. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, usually you can still call here, leaving, you've got over a half pot size bet left. And it just gets really dicey once you start to have like half, where you could have some just check jams. But I think you can call here and have the pot be 1,000 and leave yourself with 700. I just think that you might have to call a lot of rivers though. Like I said, because of the small c-bet sizing on the flop. So it looks like the pot's right around 1,000 if you put in 550 here. And you guys have, like I said, right around 700 or so left, right? 225, yeah, somewhere around just maybe 7.25. Okay.
Yeah. So, is there much merit to jamming the turn in the sense of, can we get called by worse, or are we better to just call and let him continue potentially bluffing rivers? But like you said, there's a lot of scary river cards that can drop. But
it's if he had like ace jack and he bet the turn and you check jammed on him, he might call. He might call with a jack, like queen jack, king jack, something like that. He also might call with some sort of draw that he might have had, like King 10. Maybe not with one card to come. King 10 is like open-ended, it was a gut shot, turn open-ended. And then there's a little bit of protection too that is had. It's probably pretty close. I just think if you play it like this, you're going to have to call down a lot, I feel like, at the end. But I couldn't find some hands that call that are worse than yours if you jam for 700 more. 1700, 700 to call. I don't think a jack auto like bet folds on the turn, and your hand does need a little bit of protection. So yeah, I mean, there's that. So it's not always, you're only getting called by better. Not always. Plus the pot's starting to get large, and there are a lot of equity changing cards at the end. And then if he's not bluffing on the river, then you're just giving him a reverse free card by calling. Those are the reasons why you might choose a check jam. All right, so the pot's 1,000. Let's go to the river here.
It's 5 of hearts. So, I mean, obviously it brings in 7-6, but 7-6 are probably diamonds. But if that's even defended in,
that's a brick. That's a brick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we check, and under the gun jams for 725.
I think as played, especially with the combo of your queens unblocking diamonds and spades, which is the front and the back door, you probably have to call here. I would say Queen X of diamonds would be a combo draw, though. King, Queen of diamonds, King 10 of diamonds, stuff like that. Again, I just go back to the fact that you bet so small on the flop. It's 700 into 1,000 that he's going to show up with stuff here, and it goes brick. I mean, I would call. It's not like some absurd. Plus, you block Queen 10. It's not some absurd play. And sometimes people have been turning stuff into bluffs like 10-10 here. We've heard some of the, like, anecdotally that sometimes people are taking, pairs and actually sometimes turning them into bluffs. So what ended up happening here?
We called, and he said good call and mucked. And he did flash his cards, and it was a black King 10. So I think it was King 10 of spades. So like you said, the small sizing, I think, induced the bluff, and he went 2 straights.
I mean, if you go to 2/3 on the flop, King 10 of spades probably should call. I mean, excuse me, still probably should call with if you went 2/3. I mean, it's kind of like if you went 200 and you had King 10 of spades. It's an overcard, gut shot, backdoor spades. Yeah, probably has to call. What doesn't probably call is like King 10, maybe no backdoor if you went like 2/3 to pot on the flop. But again, moral of the story here, I keep saying it again and again, flop sizing is just going to lead towards more hands that want to try to run a 2-street bluff on the turn and on the river. So good call.
Cool.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bart.